It is unfortunate coups are happening in the sub-region, but it is more unfortunate that our governments are not living up to expectation. Failure to live up to expectation becomes the breeding grounds for which this military, which unfortunately have a core mandate of protecting the democracy, they have the mandate to protect the territorial integrity of our nations, and yet the instrument of cohesion that has been given to them to be able to secure our democracy, those same instruments are being used against the vote of the people. Because when I say the vote of the people, I'm referring to the issues where a constitutional elected government put in place by the people is removed. And instead of attracting the anger and the wrath of the people who voted that particular government, they rather receive public recommendations and support from the masses. Look, Africa. When I was preparing to come to this, I thought about Professor Alice Mazuri's 6 Paradoxes of Africa, where he captioned the whole speech by talking about paradise in decay, the Garden of Eden in decay. He referred to Africa as Garden of Eden, where we have all the resources. We are the cradle of civilization. And despite all these things we could leverage on to propel our continent into a giant in the global affairs of governance, those resources has rather become a curse. And the curse, in my opinion, comes from 2 levels. The failure of our government to conduct proper governance, and then the long hand of the exploitative hand of imperialists who sit kilometers and miles far away and yet have their eyes fixed on our resources 24/7. And they will do everything possible to sit far away and still enjoy the wealth of Africa. Honorable talked about the uranium. To what extent can the unfortunate situation of a country, a very small country in West Africa, that is one of the highest producers of uranium, together with other resources, happens to be the poorest country in the world, according to the UN. We are being equipped by these foreign giants because of a particular interest in whatever resources we have in our countries. And our leaders fail to realize that they are not accountable to any institution elsewhere except the people of the country that they govern. West African leaders in Africa must see the situation in Niger, the situation in Burkina Faso, Guinea, Mali, as the sign on the wall of the trajectory that our democracy in Africa is proceeding to. The path is bleak. Today, the indiscipline of our government agents, our institutions, the wanton dissipation of public resources, the glaring show of opulence by people in power, in sharp contrast with the miserable living conditions of the people, if not checked, is what will feed into this series of military coup d'etats across the region. My concern about ECOWAS is that ECOWAS is made up of 15 countries within the sub-region. They say a house divided cannot stand. To what extent is ECOWAS going to be able to galvanize the buy-in, the support, the resource commitment of all the nations within West Africa to be able to stage a proper intervention in Niger.